Howdy, I'm Grey Pilgrim. Well, as many of you know, I'm a collector. I collect a lot of things. But one of the things I collect are old firearms. I like the history of firearms, the history of weapons. I've got swords, I've got rifles, I've got shotguns, and I've got pistols. Well, this is about pistols. Well, actually revolvers. And mostly the ones I really enjoy are so old that there's very few of them left and they're priceless. For instance, the 1847 Walker. I think they made 1,100 of them on the very first run. And of that very first run, something like 30 are documented as surviving. One of which was, I think it's called the Captain's Pistol, and it was purchased by a naval man who basically threw it in a drawer. It was never used, and as far as I know, it's the most pristine one to this day, and it's worth probably in the millions now. So because of that, mostly I collect facsimiles, the originals. Well, this collection here, these two are facsimiles. This is an 1849 Colt pocket pistol. This was released mainly to supply the 49ers going off to the California gold fields. Because if you're going out to a gold field and working your claim, you don't have time to go look for the sheriff just because some claim jumper is coming around. You deal with the situation as you find it. And the way you deal with it is with a 31 caliber cap and ball revolver, which is what this is. It's a 5-shot, and it was until 1873. I think this was Colt's bestseller. Absolutely. This is a Army of San Marcos made facsimile of it from probably around 1978, 79, something like that. Well, Remington thought that Colt was getting all the glory, and this one's kind of funked up, but yeah, it's kind of really funked up. But anyway, this that's loose. This is a 1863, I think, Remington pocket in 31 cap and ball. Remington was tired of Colt horning in on all of the revolver market, and at that time they were tooling up for the Civil War, and so Remington got into the game themselves. Oh, that's why. Okay. Come on, you get in there. There. And this is what they came up with. Again, this is a facsimile. I think it's made by Pieta, and it's from about 2003. Incidentally, if you've learned the secret of reading the hieroglyphic marks from the proof houses in Italy, you can figure out when these were made. I've got a couple of sheets on how to do that. The rest of these are originals. Now, I collect books. Many of the books I collect go back to the 15th century. I've actually got 3 from what are called incunabula, which is books written before 1501. That is from the time of Johannes Gutenberg until 1501. That period of time, 1450-ish to 1501, is called incunabula, or completely incunabula typographia, or the infancy of typography. It's in Latin, but in the world it's called incunabula. Some incunabula can be worth a fortune. The 3 I've got range in value from about $400 or $500 down to about $300, and they're not full. They're fragments, all bound, but fragments. And well, let me give you an example. One of the very first printers in English was called Thomas Caxton, and he wrote he printed several things. The Canterbury Tales, this is probably the most famous one. And an original Caxton Canterbury Tales leaf, that means 1 page, is worth about $14,000. Can you imagine what the entire book is worth? Well, anyway, With guns, it's a little easier because mainly from about the 15th century on, that is where the only world you have to worry about for firearms. But I don't have any really, really old ones yet. But of revolvers, these are all 19th century guns. Uh, anyway, I just thought I'd show you. This one is probably the rarest I've got. This is a Josiah L's mini revolver in 31. It was made sometime between 1857 and 1859. Els was a Mormon, and he was one of the group that went with Joseph Smith off to Salt Lake City. And Jonathan Browning, the father of John Moses Browning, was not the only gunsmith in that group. Josiah Els was as well. And he made this as basically an adapted pepper box. It's a single-barreled, 5-shot, 31 caliber. But it has a hammer, the big bar hammers that were common on a pepper box. Let me show you that. This is a Allen and Thurber pepper box, and as you can see, it has the same sort of bar hammer on it. The difference is this one has a rifle barrel on it. This one does not. These are all smoothbore. It's a 5-shot smoothbore 31 caliber with an absolutely brutal trigger pull, and it's double action, but with a brutal trigger pull. Allen, his name is Ethan Allen, produced many guns, and he tended to partner with son-in-laws, nephews, brother-in-laws, people like that, family members. So you'll find it Allen and Thurber, Wadsworth and Allen, Hopkins and Allen, Forehand. I think Forehand and Wadsworth got together, but Ethan Allen founded the company. When he passed, his descendants carried it on well into the 19th and 20th century. Matter of fact, I'll get to that in a minute. But this is an original Allen and Thurber. This is from about 1842 to 1847, somewhere in that period. This one is a little newer. This is a 1901 Forehand, which is, again, one of the nephews of Ethan Allen, who started his own company. And then he went bankrupt, and he sold out to Hopkins and Allen, which was another firm that was around at the time. And this was one of his. This is in 32 centerfire, no, 38 centerfire short. Is it 32 or 30? I think it's 38. Yeah, 38 short, which is a totally obsolete cartridge today. It's a top break, as you can see. But come on now, there. Interesting gun. The other ones I have are, this is a 1863 Star. This is a Civil War vintage single action version of the Star. The Star originally came out double action. It had a trigger mechanism, a trigger mechanism on the inside of the trigger guard, and the trigger itself was actually a cocking piece. So when you cocked it, you would cock it with the trigger like this, and then fire it by pushing the trigger into that little mini trigger underneath. You could just cock it with the hammer and then reach inside and push this little thing and have a single action trigger. Could be done that way, but the guys who were at work were fighting in the Civil War, especially on the northern side. This was a northern pistol. Preferred single action only because the Remingtons and the Colts were also single action only. So the War Department asked Starr if they could make a version of this in single action, which he did in 1863. And this is one of those. I just love this thing. It shoots really well to this day. This was made in 1863, and it still shoots like it was brand new. Now these two are interesting. These are Colt New Army and Navy 1892, both in 41 long Colt. I got this one at an estate sale, and what's interesting about that is that this side plate was missing, at some time in its life, and a fellow made one, and this is made out of 2 pieces of leather, of all things, glued together, and then held with an escutcheon here going through the double trigger, a screw that goes through, not trigger, goes through the the grip and bolts into the escutcheon on the other side. Well, he didn't have a plate for the escutcheon, so what he used was a wheat penny. I think it's a 1901 wheat penny, but this is an 1892 pistol. This one, on the other hand, belonged to my great-grandfather. I have every piece of paperwork you could imagine on this, from the Colt factory letter to I followed where it was shipped to, who shipped it, what hardware store it ended up in, and where it was originally sold, which was in Kansas City, Missouri, by the way. That's where my great-grandfather picked it up. He was a bridge foreman for the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe, building bridges in the state of Texas, and occasionally ran into issues with labor relations, one might say. And he bought this to deal with such situations. I also have the holster that he had it in. This is a 19th century Colt holster, which, by the way, is probably worth more than the revolver itself. But this is a family heirloom. I will never sell it. My son inherits this, and and all the paperwork I've got sitting over there that go with it. So we can trace this thing in my family going back to 1892. This is from 1892. Well, maybe 1894 or so. Yeah, I think 1894, because that was when he met my great-grandmother. That was in Cincinnati, Ohio. That's another story. This one I bought recently at an estate sale, and it's in absolutely perfect working condition. And I have very few, but I have the remnants of one 50-round box of 41 long Colt. Back in the 1950s, Remington Arms decided they would buy all the westerns were really popular on TV back then, and on that they decided, hey, why don't we make a bunch of these, and a bunch of Remington Arms, or Remington UMC Metallic Cartridge Company decided to run a big run of 41 long Colt, because they figured with the advent of everybody into cowboy stuff, they'd be interested in this for a cowboy gun. Well, they weren't. They were interested in 45 long Colt and the Single Action Army from 1873, not the 1892. The 1892, by the way, this is the very gun that they took off to the Philippines, and theirs were a .38 Smith & Wesson to fight off the Moros, and it did no good at all. And they went back to the Single Action Army and then forward to the 1911 to resolve the issues with charging Moros hyped up on drugs and swinging long Chris-type knives at you. Very, very unsettling circumstance. But anyway, 1892 long Colt, 1892 41 long Colt, both of these. Anyway, these are all of my really old ones. Incidentally, this one, like I said, is the rarest of the Josiah L's revolvers made. We know that 625 of these exist, and this is one of them. This one is actually not fireable because the nipples or cones are actually filed into the cylinder itself, and they're not screwed in, they're part of the cylinder. And these ones have all been hammered down by people dry firing it. So it won't work anymore. Alas, I've tried just about everything to see if I could get it to work, but nothing works. But that's okay. I love this pistol because of the history of it. I mean, this is a testament to the Mormon Trail, as it were. It's been there, seen that, done that. Sort of like this one. This one I call the gun that won the East, because if you were working as a blue-collar guy in an eastern city, say Philadelphia, you're working on the docks or something, you'd have one of these in your pocket. Good thing to have in the event that the bully boys come around and decide to disrupt your day. Anyway, that's what I find interesting about these things. They all have a story to tell. They all have history. And they're part of our history, America's history. Because, frankly, we're a gun culture. We always have been. And You know, that's what, by the way, started the Industrial Revolution. Was America was the arsenal of democracy. We were the guys who were making the guns for Europe in World War One, and that's what really got the Industrial Revolution going, which created the wealth that we call America today. People forget that. They shouldn't forget that. Anyway, if you like this stuff, well, you know, there's a subscribe button down there and stuff, and a like button. You know, like it. You know, come on, can't hurt. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Happy trails.